Welcome to Spelunkers, a place for exploring video games and nerd culture. This is the Game Exploration show where we break games into digestible chunks, play through them together with the community, and discuss them in exhaustive detail. I am your host for this game exploration of Fez. I am Tyler, and I am not alone. I am joined by two of my three usual co-hosts and a special guest. We will start with Chris.
Hi, I'm here.
Always here.
Ryan.
I spilled a beer.
Party
foul.
And special guest Colin. Right?
Oh, Caleb.
Caleb. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was debating. I was like, do I call him Foot or do I call him by his name? And I fucked the name up. I'm sorry.
We're off to a good start already.
I'm so sorry.
Hey, you're fine, man.
You're Foot to me.
That sounds very insulting. Your foot to me.
Caleb. Sorry, I apologize.
Oh, you're fine.
But Caleb is here because he donated money for our extra live stream and chose this game for us to play. So thank you so much, sir, for coming on here and doing this. We appreciate the donation and, helping us reach that goal for the kids. And, this game is a great game. So great choice. And it's been great all around. So thank you so much for that.
No problem.
But as I said in the horrible introduction, we are playing through Fez.
Just one chunk for this one. Because it's a rather short game, unless you do everything. And even then, I think it's 10 hours or something, probably 8, 10 to 100%.
Yeah, it's not a lot. But if you don't know what Fez is a puzzle platformer where you play as a small little guy named Gomez, and he wears a Fez hat like the one on my head. And he lives in a two-dimensional world, and the game mechanics are pretty simple. You just go around and you switch the environments up, and you toggle left to right, and that switches your view of the landscape and makes it into a 3D plane. And the entire goal of the game is to go and get these cubes. And as you get these cubes, you kind of discover the world and find out things within Gomez's existence in reality, and it gets very fucking meta very quickly. Like who Gomez is and this world that he lives in. So what is everybody's initial thoughts on the game, just as of now? Chris? Not you, Ryan.
Yeah, screw you, Ryan. Shut up. Yeah, I like it a lot. I didn't do everything. I got 35 cubes, I want to say. I did everything that I could do without using a guide. And that was not a lot, it turned out. But yeah, I like it a lot. I like that it is, you see the world from a 2D perspective, but it's a 3D world. Like, you can think of the world itself as a cube where you can see each of the 4 main sides of the cube. You never see it from top or bottom. That would be weird. Maybe you do. I don't know. I didn't get everything. But yeah, it's a unique singular mechanic that they build an entire game around, sort of like a Portal. Just build a whole puzzle game off of one good idea, which is cool.
Yep. Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going to build off of that. I think this is one of those indie games that takes an idea and turns into the whole game in a really fun way. Taking a 2D platformer and then adding 3D, but not really. You're only ever interacting with this game in a 2D space, but you have access to that third dimension. It's very unique. It's a lot of fun, and it really makes you sit and think about how platforming could be different when you can rotate the world.
Caleb?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the game. I bought it back when it first came out and got
originally released in 2012. I didn't say that in the intro, but I mean, this game's been out for a minute and it is literally on everything at this point. So it's crazy.
Yeah, but at the time, I probably did about the same as Chris. I did 30 something stars and then stopped playing and then never picked it up. And then I was like, well, this would be a good game to play again, maybe for the podcast. I really enjoyed, the perspective shifts and stuff. And actually, if you get to New Game Plus, you do get even more 3D abilities. Yeah. There's one extra unlock after you've beaten the first part of the game. So you actually can see because the game's normally in an orthographic projection, I would assume. And then if you get far enough into the game, you get some glasses that let you can actually see through the little character's eyes, which I thought was
Yeah, it's
kind
a
of cool as
first-person
well.
perspective in a
Mhm.
two-dimensional plane, which is very weird. Like when
Yeah,
you see that for the first time, you're like, "Whoa, this is crazy."
and it's crazy to see how like all the puzzles are like
Yeah,
all the stuff you're jumping onto is shifted around in the background, and like you definitely should not actually be able to jump onto it and stuff. It's pretty interesting once you
yeah,
unlock that. So
yeah. The second that you get the first-person perspective in New Game Plus, it really kind of fucks with you because you realize like the plane of existence that you are on versus the reality of this three-dimensional world is so far off from what we actually know until you look at it through the first-person view. And then it really makes you think about all the puzzles that you've done up to that point and like what they actually looked like if you were really looking at them. And I think that's where this game shines the most, is like the way it kind of makes you think about the world that you're in and how you rotate it and move around. And there was one puzzle in particular that I was messing around with where it's like you have to kind of make a Tetris style like
Yes.
shape.
You have to make a tetramino.
Yeah, tetramino, but it's like two different tetraminos that you have to
Mhm.
make, but you're shifting it between four different sides and making that different
Yeah.
tetramino. It's like the L1 and the T.
And the T. Yeah, I remember this puzzle.
And man, it was hard as fuck. I could
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
figure it out. And it turns out, like, to really do it, to do it the correct way, you need that first person perspective to make it easier. But I did it from a 2D perspective. It took forever to figure out how to make that puzzle work. But I got it, and it was like, that's super satisfying.
yeah, the game definitely gives you a lot of those like aha moments that make you feel real nice when you figure them out.
For sure.
Yeah, figuring out like the tetramino codes, like that was like probably my favorite aha moment of this
Yeah.
game. Figuring out how to read those and enter them in and get to the secret places.
Yeah,
I
let's
never
talk
did
about
figure
that.
it out. I used a guide. I'll be honest.
Let's talk about that right now,
I
Ryan.
was
How did
too
you figure out
stupid for
the
this.
tetraminos?
You just turn your head to the right. You tilt your head on a 90-degree angle and then read it that way.
What?
And then each different shape corresponds to a button press. So if it's like a T where the one block is facing up, you hit up. If it's a T where the one block is facing down, you hit down. Left, left, right, right. And then the Z shapes, one's left trigger, one's right trigger, and then a square is A. So you just turn your head to the right, read those downward, and hit up, down, left, left, left trigger, A, whatever the combination happens to be.
I would have never figured that out. I'm way too stupid for that.
It's also funny because I never even considered the idea of rotating my head to the side. I was just
The game's
like
all about
rotating
rotation.
I was rotating the shapes in my head and then just like pressing the buttons. It probably would have been easier to just rotate my head. But
Even that took I was rotating my head, but still reading it the wrong way. I had to
You could have
rotate
just
my head.
rotated your
And
Switch or whatever you were playing on too.
I was playing on PC, but
Rotate your
I could have
monitor, man. You can
rotated
do
my
it.
monitor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pick it
it's
up.
on a stand. No, I could have just swiveled it. It's on
Yeah, there
it's
you
on a
go.
mount. Never thought of that.
You got to replay the whole game now, man.
Yeah, I really do.
This
Go ahead,
game
Chris.
did remind me originally. This game is long forgotten, so it didn't remind me this time. But the first time I played it, reminded me of Super Paper Mario. If you guys ever played that Wii one, where you could switch your camera basically, and it completely changes
did.
perspective. It's very similar
Yep.
to this, but not. It doesn't go four ways around, and they don't use it for clever puzzles. It's just kind of a mundane mechanic in there.
Correct.
While I was playing it, I felt very heavy like Outer Wilds vibes. Like maybe the Outer Wilds was inspired by this a little bit at least, because had a lot of like the same kind of mind fuck puzzles where you figure it out and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that was like the solution. But it's so obvious when you see it in like hindsight,
That makes sense.
I've actually
to
never
me.
played Outer Wilds, so that makes me kind of more curious to play that game.
Outer Wilds is a fantastic game. It's honestly, it's better than Fez, I would say. It's another puzzle game, but it's really good. I highly recommend that.
Yeah, I could not. I played like an hour of it, and I could not get over the hump of I can't control this damn spaceship, and I keep crashing.
Apparently, that's a big problem for people.
All right. So I think we'll just like talk about the ending of the game and kind of how like the whole aspect of getting the cubes correlates to Gomez in his reality, because this game is really hard to talk about without really talking about what the whole point of the whole thing is, I think.
Yeah.
So it turns out once you gather all the cubes, you have basically two goals. You have to collect 32 cubes, and you get the first ending of the game, and you collect 64 cubes, right? And that is the true ending of the game. And once you get 32 cubes, the game just kind of starts over. And as you start over, it just slowly pans in and gets closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to Gomez until he's just one tiny pixel. And then you start over again. And it just starts you right back from the beginning.
Yeah, but it keeps zooming further than that, and it shows all these just like bizarre graphical things that they've made that look like, 90s screensavers, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at one point they also zoom in where it's supposed to look like maybe the LEDs on your monitor, like the 3 RGB, all the little pixels and stuff. This is kind of a cool effect.
Yeah, a lot of like heady, like, was it like Metatron type references going on during this whole thing, especially like when you have like the cube inside of the cube inside of the cube, and you see that a lot as you fill up the main cube. And then as you do the 64 cube, Caleb, if you want to speak on that, because you're the one that actually saw that ending, and like in true, I saw it on a video. I looked it up because there was no way I was going to be able to get all 64. So do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah,
the true ending of the game.
Man, I'm trying to remember how it actually like went.
I just watched the ending of it, so it basically it does the opposite. Whereas you are zooming in, it actually pulls out and you get farther out, and then turns out that Fez's world is basically like a Metatron type cube, and then it pans out and it shows more Metatron type cubes, and then it pans out and just shows more and more and more and more cubes and cubes and cubes until it's basically just static on a TV. And so there is a lot of theories if you go online, and because I went down kind of like a rabbit hole and looked it up, of saying that the true like thing of Gomez is like he is technically a pixel, and you are playing like a pixel in his world within like a screen basically. And it's like all these different universes that make up what we perceive as like a screen or like static or anything like that, which when you think about it is like really fucking meta.
Yeah, it's cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's right. It does zoom out, and like you get the feeling of like multiple dimensions and stuff, even more than the third dimension. Right? Which makes a lot of sense as well, because you have a companion following you around throughout the game. I don't remember its name, but it's like
the companion cube. Give it a little.
Yeah, the companion cube. Its shape is actually, I think, what they call a hypercube, which is a cube in the fourth dimension. So that would make sense that like you're playing as like a little pixel in his world. I hadn't seen that theory, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting how it pulls back, and then it's like you see all these other cubes, and I'm assuming that they're trying to relate it to the fact that these are all different universes, because it pans out, and that's where Gomez is, and it keeps going and going. It's like, okay, that's where he exists, and then you show all the other ones, and then it goes. And then as it pans out, it creates like all those hypercubes and puts them together into one cube, and then pans out and shows these other cubes that you assume are made up of the multitudes of cubes that were made in that, and then keeps panning. And like you keep thinking about like the existential crisis of existence. And you're like, holy fuck. Like this is crazy. So it's cool. It's really abstract, and I'll be honest, I was not expecting this game to be as abstract as it was. So that was really fun and surprising.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming when I started getting to the end of the first one. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting conclusion. Also, it ends with drums.
Yeah,
it does.
we come to Gomez in a full drum kit, just having fun.
Yeah.
So cool. I think if their question is, what do you do with life with all these multiverses? The answer is play music.
Yes.
Just have a good time.
We should talk about the music in this game is really good. So.
It is.
Superb.
At the very beginning, I really like, we've talked about obviously the game's 3D perspective, but they start you with only the 2D perspective for a minute. Your character does not have the titular Fez at the very beginning, and you kind of climb the mountain. You get a nice pan down your town, and you climb up the mountain. You get the Fez from a crazy 3D cube, or is that also a 4D
Get it
cube?
from the old guy, right?
No, the cube comes and like drops it on your head, I think.
Okay.
The old guy tells you to come up, but yeah, the cube is there and drops it on your head.
Yeah, there we go.
Which I think that cube is like some form of god.
Deity. Yeah.
So the game has like a lot of rabbit holes you can go down if you like really dig into it. And that cube up there is called the Hexahedron, which is basically just the shape of a dice, like a six-sided object.
Okay.
And then they also talk about dodecahedrons and octahedrons and other things that are basically their deities. And as you play through the game, like you can find these murals on walls and stuff where you can see like the evolution of like Gomez's race and things. There's a lot of like story hidden throughout the game that you can find. It's pretty interesting to look at because you can see like an evolutionary scale in one of the classrooms.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is you find a lot of that in the classrooms because there's like a handful of classrooms that you can find throughout the game.
Yeah.
And another thing, I don't know if y'all picked up on this because it's not like super obvious, but I think you're also traveling through time as you go through like the different rooms and stuff because
the 4 cube, the 8 cube, the 16 cube, all that stuff seems like different time periods.
Right.
I did not pick up on that, but that is so good. You're right. You're 100% right. Yeah.
So it's almost like there's also this fourth dimension to the game that isn't like immediately obvious, right? Because a lot of the rooms, like as you go from area to area, a lot of the rooms are the same rooms like from the past, and you can see that like there's one room that has a QR code where they're like carving a QR code onto the wall, and when you go into that room in the future, the QR code's finished and you can scan it, and when you scan it, it tells you the inputs to get one of the hidden anti-cubes that you can get. So it's like this.
That's so good. That's so like such a fucking deep cut for like its own self. Like, you know, to reference itself in that way, to like create that kind of puzzle, that's incredible. Because I never got that puzzle, so I
didn't saw that one either.
Speaking of anti-cubes, the way you like progress in this game is to gather cubes. So you do that by getting little bits, 8 bits, right? And you get a cube. And then there's regular cubes and anti-cubes, because for every cube there must be an anti-cube or the universe will be out of balance.
You can't have matter without antimatter or something.
Exactly. I don't know.
Is that how physics is? I don't know.
And then all the anti-cubes are a little bit harder to get than the regular cubes.
Yeah, those are more meta puzzles.
Some of them are ridiculously hard.
Well, there's also a third set of cubes called I think people call them the heart cubes.
Yeah, the heart cubes.
And those are really hard to get. To the point of like one of them, like nobody's ever solved the puzzle for it. They just brute forced a solution for it. So it's a complex. The heart cubes are a very complex puzzle for sure.
Yeah, when you think about it and how this game was made, it was only made by like 2 people. And the main guy, Phil Fish, he was in Indie Game the movie. So like you want to see him go through the turmoil of developing this game and, you know, the complexities of trying to juggle what it is to create a game and be that intelligent to create a game this smart. You could watch that movie, I suppose.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't follow a lot of drama, but I think people hate Phil Fish now. He like.
I didn't know if we wanted to talk about that, but there is some controversy.
I don't know what the controversy. Tell us.
There was going to be a second game, but so there was only one article I could really find that talked about it. It was a Polygon article from like 2014 or 2015. Apparently he got into some hot water for talking about some YouTuber. I don't even know who it is because I don't follow anybody. Basically they said something about him and he told them to kill themselves because they couldn't handle his life or something like that. And then everybody's like, hey, fuck you, buddy. And then afterwards he's like, you know what, the game's canceled, fuck that. And then Polytron, the company that, you know, he kind of developed, sent out a statement saying, yeah, you know, Fez 2 is canceled. Like, and he's just never come back. I guess he just had like a chip on his shoulder, I think, and just didn't like the environment of the gaming industry, which is understandable in a way, because the gaming industry is super toxic. But to tell somebody to kill themselves, you know,
That's also very
Well, harsh.
toxic. Yeah.
Yeah, suck my ass, because that shit sucks. You don't tell people that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like crazy controversy, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much it in a nutshell. But it does suck that we will never get a sequel because after that, like he kind of went AWOL and you never really heard anything else about him.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate because they had like a really cool preview like video for it. It was like, they have like this one-dimensional line that's different colors and it's like scrolling across. And I think it's supposed to represent like like maybe a 2D map, but you're looking at from like a really sharp angle, so you can only see like
one dimension
sliding
almost.
across, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
And it had that fantastic music going in the background. It's like, it's almost too epic for a puzzle game, but it's hyped
Yeah.
up,
Yeah, I think people are like back on their shit. It's suspecting that the sequel might come eventually because we heard about Fez for the first time in like forever, just last year, I think, when they said it was coming to Switch.
Correct. Yeah, it was like the first time, but then it also it had some controversy over it because there was a bug at some point where you couldn't solve a certain puzzle to get all 64 cubes. And I know that was in the news cycle for a while, where it's like, oh, hey, we can't get this fucking bug fixed for no reason. And people couldn't actually solve some of the puzzles in the game. But I guess it got fixed eventually.
Weird. We went on a whole tangent, but I was going to say, I do like after you get the Fez, you get that same panner cam over the village, but now in 3D to kind of show you that you've changed perspective, which is very clever.
I like that a lot.
How'd you guys feel about, there's really only two mechanics in this game. There's puzzles, which involves a lot of mechanics, and then platforming. How'd you guys feel about the platforming? I really like being able to grab ledges and stuff, but it felt a little floaty just jumping in general.
Yeah, it was floaty for sure, but overall, I think as a platformer, it does its job.
Sufficient.
The only issue I really had was when it came with the bombs and interacting with the bombs. I thought that was ass at times.
Yeah.
but
yeah.
But overall, I mean, it did its job. So
I've played worse platformers for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not as tight as it could be, but I think the platforms are, especially with you being able to rotate the world, they're definitely given enough space to make your jumps okay.
Yeah, I think that's what makes the floatiness feel good. Is like, oh, like I might not hit this, but if I rotate it, maybe it'll put it at the right angle, and I'll be able to hit it from another side. Which I found myself doing that a lot.
Yeah, another nice thing is you could save yourself from dying just by rotating the world.
Oh, yeah.
If you jump off a ledge and you see you're not going to make your jump, you can just rotate and you'll end up landing on right back where you started. So
yeah. I mean, also just the game is very generous with deaths in general. If you fall too far, you'll just die and pop right back to where you were, as long as you weren't on a rotating platform or something.
Yeah.
Also, there are some of those platforms that rotate Gomez as well, and I really like that. Is like trying to figure out how to platform to this area as you're rotating from a stationary object. Super fun.
I think my favorite example of that is the rotating ladder segment, or the segmented rotating ladder.
Yeah, we have to line up the ladders to like make them like go.
Yeah, like as you climb up, it's rotating behind you, and you just gotta slowly inch your way up. Yeah. Although that could be a little
up is super good.
Nausea-inducing, I would imagine, for someone who may be sensitive to motion.
You have to be kind of careful with it, because if you rotate your screen at the same time, it can like knock you off the ladder. I don't know if that's like intended or not, but it got me several times. I died a lot playing this game.
Oh yeah,
but thankfully it's like very generous, like you said.
Dark Souls of puzzle platformers, am I right?
Yeah, I will say that was like my biggest problem with the platform aspect is when you get to like the end game, you're having to redo all of this platforming puzzles again and again to get to places, and because you're having to go back and forth from room to room, like to try and solve this puzzle because you need information from this other room or something. So that was a little bit frustrating, but apparently there's like a flying mode that you can enable in New Game Plus, and you just kind of have to, they don't tell you about it though, you just have to stumble on the button inputs to be able to do it. And it's so supposed to like, make your life a little bit easier when you're searching for those final pieces. You're not constantly dying and stuff like I was.
Yeah. I think the fast travel system could be a little more robust.
Was there a
There's
fast travel system? It didn't really seem like there was one.
there's like 4 or 5 points you can fast travel to and from. You've
Yeah,
got
like
those,
the big, the
yeah,
like the squares that turn
cubes.
into
Mhm.
cubes.
There's-
Yeah,
warp
There's
cubes.
actually-
Yeah,
There's like 2 different warp systems as well. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's also the door with the double cubes that take you anywhere,
Mhm.
but there's no map for that, so it's
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
useless in my opinion. It would have been nice if it, you got some dotted lines or something on the map to
Absolutely.
use. Because I would just have to go through them to see where I ended up, and then I'd be like, well, that's not where I wanted to go, so I guess I'll just go back.
I am glad that you brought up the map though, because I would like to
Yep.
talk about that. I think the
Same.
map design is very cool, and how it kind of branches off, and it's almost like a tree, and how it just keeps going and going and going. And you get these different branches, and like it gets very granular. Of like, here is this room. Here are all the offshoots of that room, and then here are all the offshoots of those rooms. And
Huh?
it doesn't do anything different until like you solve all of the puzzles or find all the secrets within that area, and then it turns gold. So you
Yeah.
know that like you finished it off, and I think that's very fucking good. I like that a lot. It's very
Yeah,
cool.
very smart of them to give you a denotation of completing an area, so you don't have to come back here, or that there's no more
Yeah.
secrets to try and find. Very smart
Yeah.
of them to do that right off the bat.
Yeah. Yep.
Not only that, they tell you exactly what's in the rooms. There's little like icons that say, hey, this is the thing that you're missing in that room, so you can kind of know what you're looking for as well, which is nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, the map is kind of hard to read at first, but you get used to it after a little while. Just because it's in 3D. 3D maps, I feel like, are always harder. The Dead Space map is
Yeah.
kind of hard to read just because it's in 3D, but it works really well once you get used to it.
I found it pretty intuitive because it uses the same controls you do during the game, like you're rotating the map to look from different angles and stuff. So once you like pick up on that, I don't think it's so bad. But I like the map a lot.
One of the other things I think we should touch on is the impact of this game and the indie game in and of itself, and how this is one of those games that hit the Xbox 360 Live Arcade, and that was like a huge deal, and it really threw indie games into a new light and kind of shed so much more light on these things that are happening kind of like behind the scenes and nobody really knew about. And like if you look at all the games that are coming out now that are like getting all these amazing reviews, a lot of them are indie games, because people are taking the time to create the things that they want to create, and they don't have to worry about these big corporations hovering over them telling them what they can do, and they're able to be more creative like Fez and create things like this. So
Yeah.
it's impactful and in as much as it is creative.
Yeah, like I think the indie boom really started in like 2008 with Braid, like around that era. But like, 2 years later is Limbo. I feel like indie games still pretty rare. 2 years later, Fez, indie games still pretty rare. It wasn't until like, I don't know, I guess the PS4, around the PS4, Xbox One launch, that it's like every other game I play, if not more, is an indie game now.
Yeah, and I mean, I know for my catalog, I would say a good 80% of what I play is an indie game. And this is a perfect example because it's like a polished experience, and you don't have to pay as much money for it, but you're getting something so much more unique and creative than you will get for like a mainstream AAA game. Like, not trying to call out Call of Duty or anything like that, but
You can call it Call of Duty.
but that's like a big thing that people latch onto, and it's like it's the same all the time. You're pointing and shooting, where it's like you get this experience from these two dudes who like really went in depth. If you think about all the puzzles and the way that they thought about how they mapped this whole entire world out, this universe really, and it's so much more than anything that these AAA studios are kicking out nowadays. And it's kind of crazy, when you think about it in the long run and what that means for future indie games. Like, obviously, we're getting it now with Hades being what it was last year, and this year with Inscription and stuff like that. Like, it's kind of the way of the future, I think. Like self-made.
Yeah, to the point that even like AAA publishers have their indie brands, like EA with It Takes Two, and was it Square Enix made Dungeon Encounters and Voice of Cards this year, which are indie games and all but the actual publisher.
Yeah, and I mean, a little bit older, you've got Grow Home from Ubisoft.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Which is a game I loved.
Yeah, and things are only getting better as time progresses. Indie devs have so many more tools than they had back at that time. There's all these free engines that you can use, and engines that are indie dev friendly, where you don't have to pay licensing fees until you've made like X number of dollars, and the asset stores where you can share the things you've created with other indie developers, and um, just like these engine companies giving more of the profits from the indie games back to the indie developers, which was like a big issue in the beginning.
Which is one of the things that Epic Games, I mean, a lot of people give them flack because of Fortnite and stuff, but that's what makes them so good as far as like their Epic Game Store and the cut that the indie developers get, because I think the ratio is like 80-20 or something like that until they make like $1 million.
No, they changed that.
sales?
It's free. It is free to
Is it?
use the Unreal Engine until you make $1 million.
For Epic, right?
From Epic, yeah. Which I was going to bring that up, as I do think Epic does get pooped on a lot for Fortnite, jokes or
Great
not.
game. Yeah, it's a great game.
But I mean, they have one of the most widely used engines in the industry, and for them to say, okay, we'll take licensing fees from the big corporations for their AAA games if they want to use our engine, but for you indies, go ahead and use it. If you make $1 million, we'll call you, but otherwise, feel free.
Yeah,
I think
it
is
just,
very
it furthers growth and development for these indie developers to really go and make things like Fez in games of the sort, where they can really just go balls to the wall and do whatever they want, like be as creative as they fucking want to be. And in that gaming aspect, it's so exciting to see what's going to come down the pipeline, because we got this in 2012. That was almost 10 years ago. And we've seen so much more flourish since then, and it's only going to get better. So we're in exciting times.
Yeah. One thing we should definitely talk about is the alphabet cipher. Did anybody solve that without looking it up?
No, without looking it up.
I did. I spent a while. I've got like a little MS Paint thing over here on the side where I drew out all the symbols and I drew what letter it corresponded to. It's actually, you can solve that just by like walking around the world and trying to piece together what the different people are saying. But there's actually a really fairly simple solution somewhere in the game. If you're not familiar at all with the sentence, "the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," gives you the entire alphabet. And in the game, there is a dog sitting on the ground, and then there's a fox just jumping back and forth over it. And next to that is like this little Rosetta Stone that says the sentence, "the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog." So that's how I was able to solve it.
Yeah, I think that's that's the place to solve it if you want like one spot without referencing a million places in the game and just trying to learn a language by reading it.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Otherwise you're getting into a lot of really technical like frequency analysis of characters and stuff, and it's kind of a nightmare going that direction. I mean, it's certainly possible, but
you guys are much smarter than I am, because I never figured that out.
Yeah, I mean, I looked it up. I could not figure that out either. If you've never heard "the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," you can't figure that out. You don't understand this is a cipher, and I can figure this out from here.
And there's several puzzles like that that require outside knowledge that isn't like given to you inside the game. Because there's another one where you have to, basically like with a cube, there's multiple ways to unfold it to be like a 2D shape instead of a 3D shape. And there's 11 different ways you can unfold a cube. And there's a puzzle where 10 of those ways are pictured on the wall. And the solution is to put the 11th way, like you have to build it out of little squares again, just like you do with the Tetramino and the Metatron puzzles. And there's nothing in the game that tells you, this is how you unfold a cube, or this is what this looks like. You have to know already what that looks like. There's another one. So that one's for, I think, an anti-cube. And then there's another one that's for one of the heart cubes where there's like some flashing lights, and they flash in like Morse code or something like that. And the Morse code translates to binary, and then the binary translates to hexadecimal, and then the hexadecimal translates to like ASCII characters. So it gets like really complex with things you have to know like outside the game. I did solve that one, but the funny thing is That one I solved by complete accident. I was just sitting in the perfect spot in the game, just spinning the camera, and I happened to input the inputs that it translates to, and all of a sudden this cube pops up over my head, and I'm like, "What? What just
I'll
happened?"
take it.
And that's like
Um,
probably the second hardest puzzle in the game, and I just like skipped right over
Nice.
it on accident.
there's a few puzzles. I think this is in the sound room where uh, you have to like. This is the first game I've ever really seen that I can remember use its vibrating controllers to
Mhm.
affect.
Yeah, the tuner
so it'll-
puzzles, they're
Yeah.
called.
The tuner, that's it. Yeah, the controller will vibrate like left, left, right, 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 left, right, left,
Yes.
left. You know, and I thought that was so interesting and unique. It was a way to like utilize more than just what you're seeing on the screen. In a way, it's just like, oh, the controller vibrates when I shoot the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another cool thing about that is like there's multiple ways to solve those puzzles too, because that one it has the controller vibrating in your hand. But I was really struggling to tell which side of the controller was vibrating. But then like if you turn the music down, you can hear buzzing on either side of the headphones, and so
That's
it
good.
buzzes like left, left, right, whatever in your headphones as well, so you can pick up that way. Same for the QR code puzzles. I think like at the time QR codes weren't. I mean, they were kind of getting big, but like not everybody's phone could take a picture of a QR code yet and like tell you what it said, right? So there's like alternate solutions to those puzzles as well, stuff like that. So it gave you like ways around some of these things. Not always, like like with the red cube. I don't think there's any way around translating other than blind luck like I had, but but
Yeah.
a lot of the puzzles had alternate solutions where you could solve them if it wasn't possible for you to solve them the normal way.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we want to just talk about some of the puzzles that we liked in the game? Any that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You can just say whatever you want.
Say whatever I want. Fuck.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Nobody's gonna bleep that because I'm editing.
Tell me how cool this hat is on the screen.
Yeah, I really like the puzzles. Man, I don't know what the area is called, but where you're on basically like a little moving platform, like from Mario 3, and you have to turn the camera to make the lines keep lining up. I really like those, and then I really like. I think it's at the end of that area where you blow up a wall, and you have to like turn it as the explosion is going along the wall to keep it moving.
Yes.
It took me a while to figure
excellent.
out what was going on there, but once I did, I was like, this is good.
That was really cool. My favorites would probably be the Tetramino Tower in the waterfall area, because that was the first one where it finally clicked to like turn my head right and read the Tetramino code that way and open up that secret area to get to the tuner puzzles. And is it Metatron? I had to look up the alphabet for that puzzle, but getting all of those correct in place was chore's the wrong word, a task. But it was fun, like getting a better understanding of the alphabet through that puzzle and the guides that I was using to help me understand the alphabet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I talked about the one that I really liked, the Tetramino, earlier, where you're making the different Tetramino shapes and spinning between the L and the T. Just because I kind of brute forced my way through that without having the first person perspective to do it. And that felt great when I finally got it. I was like, I'm not a fucking idiot. Great. I can solve this. And then also, anytime that you line up the ladders was super satisfying. Like anytime that you had a ladder, it's like, I'm going to rotate it, and now it's going to line up here, and I'm going to go behind something and climb up. And just the perspective of being able to be behind stuff, I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Also,
glad it gave you your shadow to see where you were.
Yeah, a nice touch when you're behind the environment, the music like fades really quiet, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that. That was really cool.
And also, I think a part of the reason why those ladder things are so satisfying is the sound when you rotate something. It's like bop, 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 bop. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sound design of the game's fantastic. I had a lot of puzzles that I really enjoyed. I mean, there's so many interesting ones. Like with the waterfall, I don't know if you found the one on the back side of the waterfall. If you wait
where you
until
like lower the water level at.
I don't remember where it leads to, but like if you wait until nighttime, a door starts appearing like
yes, I got that one.
Yep, like the little dwarven door, and you have to like do the same Tetramino thing on that. There's another one with the clock. There's a clock tower, and uh, each there's 4 different hands on the clock, and as you rotate, you can see a different hand, and each one is moving at a different speed. And when it gets to midnight, one of the anti-cube pops up. But the problem is, it moves like progressively slower each time you rotate around the map. So you have to go outside the game and change your computer's date, date and time in order to like get to or I guess you could wait, I think the longest one takes like days for it to
Jeez.
get to midnight. So you either have to like wait and go at the right time, or you have to change your computer's time to like skip ahead and get the little cubes to appear.
That's crazy.
There was I really enjoyed the treasure map puzzles. So we're like
Yeah, I only completed I think one of those without a guide, but they were super satisfying every time.
where like the invisible platforms are on the front side,
Yes, absolutely.
and then you rotate the map around, and there's more invisible platforms on the other side, and so you have to like jump, rotate to match the direction of the map, and then jump again, rotate again to match the direction of the map, because you can only land on the different invisible platforms if you're facing the right direction.
Yeah, that one was also very good. You're right.
I never
feel like
figured
there's-
out any of
wasn't
the
there one
treasure maps
where-
I found.
Wasn't there one where like you're in a house and it shows a painting and you have to do like left, right, left, left according to like the location of the people in the painting?
Yes,
I think there was, and I got that one on accident too. I was just pressing inputs in that room, and all of a sudden,
yeah, that was one of those ones where I noticed, like, I was like, "Hey, there's a pattern there," and I put it in. I was like, I feel fucking smart, and that's what I like about this game. It makes you feel smart when normally I feel like an idiot. So
it's a picture of a bunch of people wearing fezzes, and their fezzes either on the left or right side of their head.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. You got it, Ryan.
One of the other treasure map ones is there's this one map or this one area in the game where the platforms you're jumping on are like there's a really thin line. And if you look at the map, it's actually one of those Tetramino input puzzles. The entire area is. And so you have to like look at the map and input the different inputs. I mean, you can also just like, I think the first time I played the game, I solved that puzzle just by noticing it like in the world. But then when I played again this time, I noticed it was on the map as well, and you can just have a very obvious solution sitting right there. So I really enjoyed all of those map ones. I think the last map one was, there's 2 other map ones. There's one where you have to go through different doors in a certain order.
That one I did.
I wasn't as crazy about that one. I was not a big fan of because there's also as well as the alphabet, there's also a numbering system that you have to figure out. And it's significantly more difficult to figure out, I think, than the alphabet was, at least. Just because some of the clues aren't nearly as obvious.
How do you figure that out? I looked up the number system. I looked up all the systems. People leave your mad comments. It's fine, but don't be mad at Caleb. He did it legit.
There's a lot of different things you have to put together to solve that. There's one of the areas after you've solved the alphabet has one of the numbers on a wall, and inside the number it says hub number 5, and so you figure out, okay, this shape represents the number 5. Right. And then there's also another room, I think it's the boiler room, where on the wall is, again, the number shapes. And underneath them is a picture of like, well, you have the number 1, and then you have a picture of a single dot. And you have the number 2, and you have a line. And you have the number 3, and you have a square. And then you have the number 4, and you have 2 squares, one in front of the other. And you figure out that that's numbers because the point is a 1-dimensional thing, a line is a 2-dimensional thing, a square is a 3-dimensional thing, or a square is a 3-dimensional thing, and then the cube is supposed to be a 4-dimensional thing. So no, sorry, I said that wrong. The point's a 0 dimensions, so there are no dimensions. So that number corresponded to 0. Then the line is a 1-dimensional thing, that number corresponds to 1. The square is a 2-dimensional thing, that number corresponds to 2. And then the 2 squares in front of each other, all in one of the maps, it says the word cube, and then it has that symbol in front of it. So you have to realize that that's a cube, and you realize that that's a three-dimensional thing. And you figure out that's number 3. Then like there's this whole deal where there's multiple symbols for some of the numbers. So somewhere else in the game, there's a map that shows a number and then an equal sign and then another number. And you realize that, okay, this equals that. And then once you pick up all of that, you can kind of intuitively reason out that like when the shape has like a point at the top, then it's the number 1. When it has a point on the right, it's the number 2. Point at the bottom is the number 3. Point on the left is the number 4. And any combination of those points is those numbers added together. And that's how you figure out the numbering system. It's a huge pain in the ass. It took me hours to figure it out. So that was not like, I think that could have been more obvious because the equal signs, one of the numbers, the shape for the number is the equal sign. So it's not immediately obvious that you're looking at an equal sign, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of like things that made it very difficult to reason out. But it was cool once I got it, because then there's other puzzles where like, it tells you what order to do things in by showing the numbers and stuff. So
yeah, it seems like solving all these puzzles in this game yourself like qualifies you to go explore ancient ruins or something, I think is how that works.
Yeah. Something.
Yeah, I think one thing that helps is like I do in my spare time, I do like challenges, like cryptographic challenges, because I'm a programmer and like cryptography is a big thing in programming. And so you're trying to like translate, ciphers and all this other jazz. So at one point I considered like writing programs to help me solve a lot of this. I was like, nah, I'm just going to reason it out on my own, I'll figure it out. But, like the cool thing about the game is like, I don't think there's anything like any kind of background item that isn't like part of a puzzle. Like, or at least
it's all a part of the whole in a way. And, you kind of have to look at everything and question on whether or not it's going to be a part of something else later on, which is really crazy.
Like you go to the area with the painting and they have the fezzes on the sides of the head and you rotate and you find out. And then there's like another room that has a painting of a bookcase with a door beside it. And right beside that's just a bookcase. And it turns out if you press the interact button on the bookcase slides out of the way and there's the door that's in the picture, and like all this other stuff, like, and making connections with like the Tetramino symbols. You go to that one room and it shows you what the symbols are, or finding the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, all that stuff. Like it's all interconnected throughout the whole of the game. And it's just like super interesting because there's still that one puzzle that nobody's ever solved. And all I can think is like this, I know that there's something in the game that probably explains how to solve this. It's just like so deep hidden in the game that like nobody's been able to figure it out yet. Because the stuff hidden in the game is like insane. Like there's even on the soundtrack, if you run the soundtrack through certain programs, you can pull images out of the soundtrack. And then those images, like one of them is a QR code again, and it has like all these dates and stuff. And it's like, surely some of this has to do with like solving that last puzzle, but nobody's ever been able to figure it out,
It's crazy.
Will we ever know?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have taken the last puzzle to be kind of a fuck you, and there's no real solution.
That'd be great.
It's one big troll.
Maybe that is the answer, but I don't know. There's so many things that seem like they have some sort of connection that are never used, that I just have to believe that like that's part of the solution, and it's just some huge overarching thing that you have to make some crazy connections for. I spent 14 hours playing the game, and I like a good chunk of that was trying to figure out this last puzzle that nobody's ever solved. I was like, maybe I'll be the guy. I wasn't. Spoiler alert. I still have that one room that's not golden. My whole map's golden except for this one room, and it's driving me insane. But
crazy.
like there's still people active on the subreddit trying to solve that puzzle like to this day. So
It's funny that you bring up Reddit because we posted into the Reddit to have some of that community give us some feedback. So I don't know if you guys want to go ahead and jump into that right now.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
So we got a handful of comments and stuff. I'll just read out the whole thing. The first one that we got was from That Waffles Kid, who says, Fez is one of those rare games that harkens back to the pre-internet era of hand-drawn maps, deciphering clues, and best of all, rumors akin to the ones you'd hear at recess, which I think we kind of missed out on in a way because we weren't playing it at the jump.
Yeah.
We're kind of playing it after the fact.
I kind of very much got that vibe because like I sitting here, I have like all these notes. I drew stuff out in MS Paint. I have pages and pages of notes where I've like translated the text that the people are saying on screen, trying to find like connections to stuff. I have screenshots of like every room because I was trying to like it gets very tiresome running back and forth from room to room. So I'm like this crazy guy, with the board on the back wall with the red lines connecting everything. That's me while I'm playing this game. I very much.
Are you sure you should be in software development and not like a PI or something?
Yeah. No. Maybe if I can solve the last puzzle one day,
That Waffles Kid goes on to say, the community is great. Everyone really respects the exploration aspect and only gives vague hints if you ask for help. It's been a few years since I played, but it definitely rekindled my love for games and remains one of my favorite gaming experiences I've ever had. So that's very cool. And I could totally see that being something that rekindles your love of games, because it's one of those things where it's like, this is where we're at now. It's like we're able to make these kind of things, these experiences that are so different from anything else that you can experience. Like, it's not a movie, it's not a TV show or music. Like, it's its own thing that you have to physically interact with to understand what it is. And you can only get that with a game, which is nice.
For sure.
Harris, another commenter, said, this is a long one, so bear with me. I made my avatar based on Fez after I completed my exploration of the game. Before we knew it'd come to PC, I bought a used Xbox 360 by the end of December 2012 just to play this game. I have no regrets. What I like the most in this game is its richness, first in the puzzle diversity, but also in the various level atmospheres. The OST is on point. You rarely see a game having its own alphabet, which, as a side note, can be harder to decipher depending on where you live. And it leads to having notes. Sorry, there's a lot of typos in here. I think I've got my notes somewhere, and then he posts his notes.
Nice.
So just before we keep going, puzzle diversity and the various little atmospheres. What do y'all think about that?
I think that's a great point, because there's a lot of puzzle games that use the same puzzle, just make it bigger and broader as the game goes on. And here they don't do that. They take the mechanic behind the puzzle and use that in more interesting and obfuscated ways.
Yeah, it's like we get what we're doing here. We're going to do it, and then we're going to move on. We're going to make it more complex and add layer upon layer. It's like an onion, as the ogres say. Fez and ogres are like onions.
And thinking of the puzzle diversity, all I can think is it's such a shame that Fez 2 got canceled, because a lot of the mechanics I would have liked to have seen them come up more. But at the same time, I felt like the game's like a perfect length. Any longer, and I probably would have gotten like bored of it, right? But with like a second game or something, you could have explored those mechanics more in depth, and like you could have added more mechanics. Like, there's things that people have done since Fez came out where like they add fourth dimensions just a normal game, and it would have been like a perfect thing to like hook into Fez 2, where like you press a button and all of a sudden you've moved along the fourth dimension, and now you're like standing in a different spot than you were originally and stuff like that. It could have been really cool. But that aside, the puzzle diversity is a lot of fun as it is. Like, there's so much different things that you're doing to solve these different puzzles, and they all have multiple solutions as well. So it's like there's always some way for someone to find a way through the puzzle, even if their brain works a little bit differently than others and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They continue. It's weird how the game didn't really catch me immediately at its release, but I'm not unfamiliar with such processes where a game at first glance doesn't really interest me, but then somehow by seeing a video on it, your interest just kind of changes and it keeps growing until you finally decide to buy it. Which I agree that happens to me all the time. Only recently did I understand how I work and what I like the most, not only in games, and the game is full of them. It's discoveries. And I think that really nails it on the head of what I like about games. It's discovering something and being able to solve something that somebody else might not be able to solve, and making that discovery and getting that object or that ending just because you did this certain thing.
Mm. I think the way that translates for me, like the thing I love about games is the growth, like being able to grow throughout a game, seeing your power scale grow or your personal skill level grow within a game. I think it's the personal skill level growth here, like being able to understand these puzzles better, coming at them more well armed to tackle the next puzzle because you understood the last puzzle, not just because you got through the last puzzle, but because you understood the last puzzle, you understood how they constructed it and how it communicated from puzzle question to puzzle answer, being able to translate that into answering the next puzzle along the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Totally.
They continue. That's probably why it's one of my favorite games, and it's quite sad we'll never see Fez 2, but that's how it is. By playing it a bit late, I missed the Effervescence at the release, but we still had the PC one, which was also quite enjoyable. Enjoying it by reporting bugs, too. It's crazy to think some mysteries haven't been solved properly, at least as we publicly know, but I feel like it's a nice touch to have at least one mystery still there for a game, or anything, really. So I think it's another great point. They're really hitting a lot of good points here of like, this game is this old and there's still stuff that hasn't been solved yet. As Caleb was talking about earlier, trying to beat his head against the wall, trying to solve that last puzzle.
I mean, I would not be surprised if there's like multiple unsolved mysteries in the game. Because, like, with most games, you could pull the assets out of the game and find, okay, I haven't found this collectible because it's in the assets, so I know that I haven't found this thing. But with Fez, like, there's like flavor text and stuff that you know could be used to help you solve a puzzle without it ever having been like an asset in the game, right? Like, trying to think of an example. So, like the solution to the final puzzle, there's like half of a map in the game, so you know that there's some solution to this, but the actual solution isn't in the game. At least not like as a physical asset. Maybe it's hidden somewhere by taking like some subset of the textures laid out in like a certain pattern or something, and there's no way to like data mine that out of the game, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure as somebody who gets into source code and stuff like that, it's probably more interesting for you because you're able to like really get in there and visualize the way that the creators made the game.
Yeah.
So you have like a deeper understanding of like the whole thing and like the coding and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent a good bit of time trying to figure out how they made the movement mechanics work, right? Because like your character keeps moving. You're playing in a 3D world, and like the thing you're jumping on is in the background. It's not actually right next to you. So how does the game like know when you jump to the side that it's supposed to land on that background thing? Because then when you rotate the world, you are standing on that thing that's in the background. You've like teleported back to back, and trying to figure out like how those things would work and how I would implement them in a game or something. It was a lot of fun for me. And it's also a lot of fun to see like, in programming, uh, the numbers to the power of 2 are like super important. So the 8 little bits of the cube correspond to like stuff in programming where you have eight bits and a byte of code, and like you take 4 of those and you end up with 32-bit things like numbers that we use 32 bits to store numbers, and then you have 64 bits which you use to store bigger numbers. And so you can like, as a programmer, you can see like he's taken the 8 bits to make the little bits for the cube, and then you have 32 cubes, and you have 64 cubes, and it's just really interesting to see those connections with like the background knowledge as well.
Absolutely. So we have 2 more comments here. Next one is from Captain Shocker. Any relation to you, Ryan?
No, never met him.
You know, Captain thing going on over here?
No, not on Reddit.
Okay. They say an incredible game that has so much lore behind it, for better and worse. Phil Fish is regarded as one of the great indie developers, but toxicity got to him and prevented us from getting the next iteration of this fantastic game. R.I.P. Fez 2. We hardly knew ye. Word. We get it. I remember playing this and Spelunky, shout out, around the same time, and was fascinated by how rich and detailed, seemingly small shop games were. It was so cool. Fez is one of those few games I've ever taken notes for as well. The fact that Fez has a gorgeous OST that I've studied to numerous times and in-game alphabets still yet truly solve puzzles and in-game with no real enemies makes it such a uniquely special game for me. I'll always recommend it despite the navigation confusion and other idiosyncrasies. I like to think it's just difficult for my 2D perception of the world, which is a fascinating way of looking at it. Like, it's hard because we are looking at it from a 2D perspective as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the last comment from Reddit user, it's going to be all right. Because they have like multiple T's, so it's all right. How long has it been? I can't even remember how long ago I first discovered Fez. This is like a narration. Something about the game, art, and its vibrant colors. By the way, none of these people use commas, which makes it
yeah, just flame them, Tyler. Good job.
very hard to read.
Commas don't exist on Reddit.
It's so hard to read when you don't have a comma. Game, art, and its vibrant colors called to me and compelled me to try it out. I really had no idea that I was in fact about to play something that would influence me for a lifetime. Even though it's been years since that time, the game's... Okay, they put some comments in, thank God. The game's music still tugs at my heartstrings, almost as of a rekindling a memory long forgotten, which I like the way they write that. The game, music, and atmosphere resonate with me on a deeper level than the human mind can quite comprehend. I just want to say thanks to everyone who worked tirelessly on this project. Your efforts and hard work are not for nothing. Phil, wherever you are, I hope you're happy and taking care of yourself. If you ever decide to come back into this, know many of us would welcome you with arms wide open. Disaster Piece, who is the person who did the OST for this, you, sir, are the man. What you do with music is unreal and magical. Please let me know if you ever decide to create music. Oh, well, we don't have any influence here. Something live on YouTube or Twitch. I'd love to just sit back and vibe while you're doing your thing. Engineers, everyone else, I love you all.
Yeah, we should have mentioned Disaster Beast when we're talking about the music. They also did the music for Heart Machine's game Hyper Light Drifter, which that soundtrack's amazing too. You should listen to that if you like this one. I don't know if they did it for the new game that just came out, Solar Ash. Is that still Disaster Beast? I should look that up.
Yeah, just came out today.
Yeah.
So thank you all the Reddit users who commented. We really appreciate that. So really insightful stuff there. I feel bad that we really didn't get deeper into the music. I liked it, but it didn't resonate with me on a way that like I felt like I needed to dive into it too hard. I don't know about y'all.
It was always enjoyable to listen to while I was playing the game, but I didn't listen to it outside of my playtime. No.
I'll say, like, I enjoyed the music while I was playing, but I wasn't, at least in the very beginning, I didn't start paying attention to the music until I'd gotten towards the end of the game because I was so focused, like, trying to solve these puzzles.
And that's exactly how I was as well.
Filtering it right out. But once, like, I got towards the end and I'm just, like, moving from room to room, wishing I had the flying ability, trying to get to the next room, you know, listening to the music got a lot more enjoyable. And it was a really good soundtrack.
All right. Is there anything else that we need to cover?
Let me see. I have a few like mop-up notes here. We didn't really talk about changing water levels. I like those puzzles in the well. That was fun. Also, it was like a green tint, like almost Game Boy looking down there. There's also an area that looks like Virtual Boy that is hideous, as it should be. The very last like area, for at least for the normal ending, when you go through the 32 cube door, where you're kind of in space, jumping up. I was very happy when I got there, and then you immediately like have a super high jump because I was like stressing out as it's scrolling down that area. Like, oh my god, these jumps look impossible. Turns out they are. You need a super high jump to get up there. And the last thing, cool like visual thing, is I think it's in the forest. When it's raining and lightning's coming down, there's invisible blocks. I love that. Like you can see them
Yes.
clearly when
Yeah.
the lightning strikes, but also you can just see them from the rain hitting them. But it's very subtle. I like that.
There's
a lot.
also ghosts that you can talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's owls you can talk to. Owls.
Yeah,
are a
I was
big
gonna
thing
say
in this
there's
game.
owls too. We totally forgot about that. But
Oh yeah, there are.
anything,
I think
anything even come from that? I mean, what was
I
that?
think
They
owls,
lead you to puzzles a lot of the time.
Oh, okay.
not only that, but talking to them, like you have to find 4 of them to solve one of the other puzzles. And I think they were also supposed to be some sort of deity as well, just based on like the little hieroglyphics they have in the background in some
And
of the
there's
rooms.
several large owl statues in a lot of these rooms.
Statues, and then like some kind of squid creature was also some sort of like god figure or something to these people,
Mhm.
whatever they are.
I don't know if
Because
you
it's-
played Tales of Arise, Caleb, but there's a lot of owls in that game,
I have not.
and so
That's
I was
literally the
I've
only
had-
similarity.
I've had enough owls, I think, for a lifetime out of that game. But yeah, I think that really covers it. I mean, unless you all have any last comments about the game, because other than that, I mean, it's in a
it's a
nutshell.
game. It's a game to be experienced. It's a game to play for yourself. You know, we can talk about what the game does, but it's hard to understand exactly how that translates to gameplay without playing it yourself.
Yeah.
Because they use it in very interesting and unique ways. Even if a larger, like a AAA studio, were to take this kind of game mechanic, the conceit behind this game, the rotating the world and puzzles, like I don't think they would have translated it in the same way that it got translated here.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Totally.
Chris, you got any other final thoughts?
No, it's a good game.
Caleb?
I mean, just overall, a really good puzzle game. I felt, like I said, a lot of connection to Outer Wilds, which is now one of my favorite games of all time. Another great puzzle game. They both have great soundtracks. Like we talked about, like I think a good soundtrack makes a world of difference in a puzzle game, just because like there's not a lot of action going on. So having that background noise, even if you're not like paying attention to it, is super nice. And so I just think, overall it was a lot of fun. And it's not like so time consuming and difficult that you can't finish it. Like I think I finished the game in like 2 or 3 days, so it's not like a huge time sink or anything either. It's overall an enjoyable experience.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we'll end it there. I think we can really say all we can about the game up to this point. You just, like Ryan said, you got to experience it for yourself. So we'll end with some plugs. Ryan, you got anything to plug?
We're not doing scores?
Oh, I forgot.
The host,
God.
everybody. Look at the
I feel like
host
it's
here.
Did we score the last game we did?
Yeah.
Oh, Maury,
score?
we all gave it 10s, remember?
We did. You know what? It was so good, I forgot because I didn't really get the scores. I was like, it's a 10. All right, scores, Ryan.
8-5.
Okay, Chris?
8-2-5.
Caleb?
I'm thinking like 8 or 9 overall. It's like almost perfect. There's just a couple things that were a little bit frustrating,
For sure.
Yeah, I'm like a 7.5 or an 8.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite game of all time, but it does what it does well. I'm just not enough. Maybe I wasn't in that space and time. Like really want to get into the puzzles too deep, but once I got those 32, I was like, I'm good. I got it. So. All right. So now we'll end with some plugs.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Check out our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Blungers. We got a lot of streams, a lot of nights of the week. I'm doing Pokemon on Tuesdays. Chris and I are going through Resident Evil on Wednesday nights. We've got the Wasted streams on Saturday and something on Sunday. A good handful of us are always getting together for some kind of co-op or multiplayer game. It's been a lot of Halo lately, but always something we're just playing together on Sunday afternoons. Give us a follow. Love to have you.
Chris.
Yeah, also our YouTube channel, which I can just read off a nice URL for because we don't have enough subs yet. Please sub to our YouTube channel. We would appreciate it. If you are watching this, the sub button's right below. Please hit it. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, we will have the YouTube channel linked below.
And go there and sub.
Please.
Also, leave a comment.
Yeah, comments are free and they're nice and
And
they
a
make us
review.
happy.
Also, leave a review. We need a review as well. Use some reviews. Tell us what we're doing wrong. We're right. Mainly right. Caleb, you got anything to plug?
I mean, you can find me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/futbot. I play games every once in a while. I'll do some coding, mostly single player games. Every once in a while, I'll play multiplayer.
What are you playing right now?
I just hang out. Lately, it's been Halo with buddies. You know, the new Halo Infinite release.
Oh yeah, we know.
We do
But
know.
I try and stick with
started.
stuff like Fez or Outer Wilds. Puzzle games are a lot of fun. So
Right.
Yeah, those seem like that'd be really fun to play with a chat.
mhm.
That's PHUT bot, everybody, if you're looking for it on Twitch.
I just stream for fun, so you know.
What do we? Seems like.
We stream for the money. We don't make it.
Yeah, we're loaded. These you can't just buy these Fezes anywhere. The last thing I want to plug is the Last Call podcast that we do after the Wasted stream on Saturdays, where Chris, Ryan, Tom, and I get together. I usually am hammered ass drunk, and we just have a good time and crack jokes. You know what? I'll say it. I listened to the last episode just to see how drunk I was, and I made one of the funniest fucking jokes ever about a boy named Christmas, and you should listen to it. Go listen to the last episode of Last Call, episode 12. It's hilarious. Make a great joke.
You remember
about
that
the
joke,
first 10
Ryan?
minutes, and then don't ever listen to it again after that. We were talking about the drinks and how they taste like Christmas. Remember that?
Were you drunk listening to the podcast and you just made this
No, I
up?
wasn't. Go listen to it again and then tell me how good that joke was, because it was good. Lastly, I just want to thank Caleb again for donation and for being a part of this. This episode would not have been what it was if you weren't here.
We would have been roasted so hard if you weren't here, dude.
Yeah, not only because
We still will
you
be,
made this happen by making us play this game, but also your knowledge and your drive to get all 64 cubes and really experience Fez for what it was. So thank you so much for being a part of this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
And big
And
thanks for
we-
your commitment to charity. Honestly, I mean, I know we mentioned it, but we love Extra Life here at the Spelunkers. It's one of our favorite charities. We will be doing them every year in perpetuity. And Caleb here really shot us over our goal near the tail end of our 24-hour stream. It put us all in some great elation while we were exhausted from 23 hours of straight streaming. So we really appreciate it. Yeah, it's all for the kids.
All right, and with that, we'll see you next year, because this is the last official exploration of the year 2021. We will be back in 2022 with the next game, but stay tuned to the Spelunkers channels for more.
Yeah, we do still have podcasts coming this year, by the way. It's just not exploration. That's a little misleading.
That's what I said. I said this is the last game exploration of the year. We have more podcasts coming, just not this.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye, everybody.